Hello, pretty storytellers. Welcome to Pretty Stories, and depending on what time you're watching this, as I know this video is already late, but happy Autism Acceptance Month! Okay, so wow, I don't even know where to begin with this video, but let's just start with the fact that I do have autism, which, have I ever mentioned this on my channel before? Back when I had low-functioning autism, I have autism. I am openly on the autism spectrum.
Is it stereotypical to say autistic?
As someone who grew up with autism, I expected less. And I gotta say, being on the spectrum has done so much for me, both through childhood and even today. To give you a quick sneak peek of the theme, I was diagnosed with autism when I was 3 years old, similar to many people. And so it caused me to really smile on any of my baby pictures, and I don't know why I still kept this sign even today. Like, this is from preschool or kindergarten. And this sign would have taught me how to get on the bus when I was very little. With these signs, like, I remember teachers or my parents even telling me, Brittany, it's time to get on the bus in the front only, even though I crossed out the back only because, I don't know, I was such a real kid back then. Like, it didn't really matter now. Even when my temper was starting to dial down once I got older, I remember used to having this fun little sensory box called Whitney's Break Box that I used to play with, and it's full of toys to calm me down after a meltdown. I still remember this one time in 2nd grade when my old best friend, who is now one of the popular girls, wanted to play in my break box with me during snack time, which caused one of my toys, which is like the penguin squishy. I still remember that to smell like hummus, which smelled disgusting to me. So whenever I try to play in my break box, I will always try to avoid that damn penguin. And I'm getting off topic, am I? So let's talk about autism representation.
Representation in general has got to be one of those tackling subjects you can either get so accurate and right or so wrong and offensive. And within the autism community, a lot has changed, such as replacing the offensive blue puzzle piece with a rainbow infinity symbol. Also symbolizing neurodiversity and how we should bring acceptance and pride towards autism rather than bring awareness or treat the condition like something that needs to be a cure. Plus, everyone on the spectrum is different and unique in their own ways, so autism representation has got to be one of the most complex and difficult topics to tackle.
So, because they want to narrow down the autism representation list to just children's shows, I kind of find it ironic how even though everyone on the spectrum is different in their own ways, most of these examples I see within children's shows can just be summed up as
ignore a little boy with strong sensory complexity who likes things with wheels.
Not saying that there's anything wrong with that common portrayal of autism, but come on, I think we need a little bit of male diversity over here.
Especially when collaborating with a certain controversial organization and having your main focus be an outdated puzzle piece symbol, which just sigh.
So while autism representation, especially from a perspective of someone who is autistic, may seem challenging, mainly when observing both old and new autistic stereotypes, such as how any person with autism knows how to solve a Rubik's Cube. Well, personally for me, I got this thing for Christmas 8 years ago. 8 years of solving the impossibilities and the treacherous time of this Rubik's Cube. Like, just look at it. There's even bite marks because I'd rather use this wannabe anvil as a chew toy for my dog cat than to ever suffer the long treacherous, the complexibility, and the challenge of this evil, stupid Rubik's Cube.
there has been great times where autism representation has been represented in a positive, beautifully unique way out of the ordinary boys loving twins, with examples such as Julia from Sesame Street and Renee from Disney's Loops, with its non-verbal form being from Madison Brady, an actual non-verbal autistic voice actress.
So while I could just go on and on about the positive examples of autism representations, just in case you don't know what we love doing here on Pretty Stories, we love to focus more on the underrated stuff. Which is why for Autism Acceptance Month, we'll be taking a look at
I Am Temple Grandin, both the book by Brad Meltzer from Ordinary People Change the World and the episode from Xavier Riddle and the Secret Museum. While the book dove in more detail in the life of Temple Grandin, including some aspect that was left in the episode that I can totally relate with throughout my childhood. While the Xavier Riddle episode not only gave us the fun, diverse, lovable trio of Xavier, Yadina, and Brad, I love Brad so much, but it also introduces us to a new character named Ben, can you guess it's another boy, who Yadina has a hard time making friends with due to his autism and seeing the world in his own unique perspective, which is just a spectacular demonstration and subtle analogy to show to little kids, especially while connecting this ending with the main message of my novel idea, also focus on neurodiversity, which we'll discuss more of so later in this analysis. But before we dive into I Am Temple Grandin, you first need to take this analysis in the perspective of someone who just learned about Temple Grandin through both this book and the episode, and how we are going to structure this analysis will go like this. First will be from the beginning of the episode to where the crew meets Temple Grandin. Second will be a mixture analysis and comparison of the Temple Grandin scenes from both the episode and the book. And third will be returning fully on the episode from where the crew travel back to the present to the ending of this episode.
So with all of that out of the way, let's take a deeper dive into Ordinary People Change the World and Xavier Riddle and the Secret Museum's I Am Temple Grandin, all coming from an autistic perspective. So without further ado, let's do this.
So the episode begins, or I guess pre-begins, with Xavier and Yadina introducing the audience to the person of the week, Temple Grandin, as a super smart scientist, teacher, and engineer who is autistic. So the thing you need to know about autism is that it is a very hard concept to describe for everyone who has the condition. The way that they summed up autism in Xavier Riddle along with the book is when the brain works in a unique way that causes the person to do, think, and experience things differently from other people. Even though I personally wouldn't mind if these types of shows go deeper in explaining how not one person with autism will act the same as another, honestly, I really don't mind the way they summed it up here, since I'm the type of person who believes that actions speak louder than words. And while the auditory learning of explaining the many functioning of autism may seem like a really challenging thing to do, the visual learning of showing us what autism can do to a person leads for a stronger impact that both this episode and the book has done successfully. Also, before we're done with this pre-beginning, I just want to add my edit here since I find it really funny.
And now let's push the big red button. Ah! No need to fear. Red Man is here.
Okay, so the real episode begins with us seeing Ben, the new kid in Yadina's class, sightseeing at his first time at the museum, and I just couldn't help but love it when at first the show teases us by making us think that Ben will just be another autistic boy who likes trains.
How original!
Have any of these writers ever heard of autism being a diverse spectrum? Huh?
But thank goodness that was only just a tease, since what got me the most surprised about Ben is that even though we later learned that his main interests are balloons, he is also the most observant in the environment he's in as long as it's quiet enough, such as the train tease scene and when he is viewing a dinosaur skeleton. Out of any of the autistic examples I have seen by far, especially the stereotypes, Ben seems to be the most versatile example out of the spectrum. Once Yadina introduces Xavier and Brad to Ben, we got a very subtle detail from him that I swear I didn't even notice at first watch. where he is seen popping a rubber band on his wrist as a helpful stimming technique for him. I just find this small little scene to be really unique because I feel like in any other show that delivers the autism acceptance message, they will usually put so much emphasis on the autistic character stimming. But what they did here in Xavier Riddle is treat Ben stimming as a nice, ordinary, little, subtle, and realistic detail with his autism as they show instead of tell. I personally have stimmed like that a couple of times, sometimes without even noticing, like if I wear my pants leg during class, or pacing around a room to help me gain ideas, or a thing that I used to do that I mentioned on my old channel is rub a little orange ball around the table whenever I am on screen speaking, but I don't do that anymore. And many other stimming techniques that I have done throughout my life, which at times I can't even notice when I'm doing it or not. So the way they play this stimming scene off is so subdued and down to earth. It's just a really great thing to see that deserves more than just my full credit, you know? But back to the show, Yadina knows from her teacher that Ben is autistic without knowing what it means, but that they could be friends by going on one of
Yadina and Dr. Zoom's amazing museum tours!
So the gang rushed in to greet Ben to the museum all at once, which caused Ben to get frightened by what looks like unexpected chaos to him, which I don't know if I'm just saying this because I'm autistic too, but can you blame him?
These 3 kids of evils are only really disguises because deep down under their disgusting clothing, they are a pack of hyenas and gazelles ready to finish off their mission of retrampling Mufasa's dead body.
So after his mother confronted him, and I know this is gonna sound real off topic, but the mom has such a beautiful design. And just so you don't know, beautiful is such a strong word to me, so please don't think of me as one of those real kids who crushes on the friend's mom, because it's nothing like that, I swear. But I just love how the mom has such a soothing and supportive tone towards Ben with her calm wavy brown hair and lavender turtleneck sweater matches her soft interior just as much as her exterior, and the designer's done such a wonderful job with her character along with the voice acting, which I'll discuss more on later since the voice acting for each character is such a huge highlight on which made this episode message so great for both the younger viewers and the older viewers. Instead of directly saying that Ben is autistic to use that as an excuse or whatever, the mom tells the trio that Ben is sensitive to some sounds and suggested that only one of them should talk at a time, with that person, of course, being Yadina.
Don't worry, Ben. I'm here to help you have the best time. We'll start at the Hall of Presidents, obviously. Then the Kids Zone, Nature Exhibit, that's Dr. Zoom's favorite. And then...
Yadina, you gotta start at the dinosaur exhibit.
2 words. Butterfly Conservatory.
That's stop number 23, but I'll consider bumping it up.
Now, if someone were to ask me if I am sensitive to sounds, then I would say no, but yes, but no, but yes, but I'm cheating on the system, okay? So let me explain. So why I say that I'm technically cheating on the system is because I have this special trick that helped me soften the sounds around me. But first, first I need to reset the whole system. So here's how you do it. So first, I need to reset the whole system by yawning like this. Okay. So by yawning, now my ears are back to the way it should be. Okay, now I'm done. And now, even my voice gotten louder and my ears are now unplugged. Whenever I do this trick, I always get, kind of shocked that my voice suddenly becomes louder. And the second thing you need to do, okay, you need to talk quieter like this. So the second thing you need to do is, okay, I still feel like this ear is in the mid. So the second thing you need to do is to take one, it could be either your finger or arm, and then just put it up the nose like this. And then take one big sniff like this. And then boom! That's how you do it. Now, the sounds are softer now around me. And like whenever I do this trick in public, like I usually use my arms instead of my finger. I mean, sometimes when I'm in private, I use my finger and thumb. But since that kind of looks gross in public, I use my arms. Like whenever I yawn, I have to like take a big sip and then like that. And most people think that I'm sneezing whenever I do this, but I'm not. I'm actually like softening the sounds around me.
Ben then proceeded to head off to his favorite exhibit, which is the balloon exhibit.
But how can Ben have a favorite if he's never been here before?
Because we did a practice visit.
A practice visit?
Uh-huh. We looked online at photos of the museum to help Ben prepare for coming here.
Even though I never remember being the type who needs to go on practice visits just to be prepared on what is going to happen on certain trips, I know that autism is a spectrum and that there are many other people on that spectrum who like structure, order, and predictability. So if anyone else can relate to having practice visits, let me know. Unfortunately, Yadina feels bad that Ben rejected their amazing museum tour all for balloons.
Ben didn't even give our amazing museum tour a chance. So much for making a new friend.
Uh-oh. I know that look.
To the secret museum!
Yep, that was the look.
Did I forget to mention that I love Brad so much? But anyways, the kids set off on their adventure at the secret museum to meet author, scientist, and professor Temple Grandin. Drew a kite that looked like a bird. Make sure you remember this simile throughout this entire analysis to see if she can do anything to help Yadina become friends with Ben. Since another thing you got to appreciate with this episode is that instead of them focusing on having there be something wrong with Ben, the focus is with Yadina needing to learn about the uniqueness of Ben to help start a genuine friendship with him, which is, once again, such a refreshing thing to see when it comes to representation of neurodiversity.
Ready for adventure?
Totally ready!
Partially ready.
So our trio of heroes travel in 1953 Massachusetts to meet Temple Grandin as a little girl in her garage with unique put-together kites, kite supplies, and drawings of cows. By analyzing the background of this setting, I wonder what we're going to learn about this person of the episode today.
Nice to meet you!
I'm Brad.
This is where we learn that Temple goes inside the couch, or as they call it in the episode, a couch hug, when she gets startled or needs time to relax. So whenever she is feeling all comfortable now, she can get out and feel refreshed once again.
Couches can't give hugs, though it might feel a bit like that.
So I didn't know whether or not I'll be adding this to the video, but like I remember when I used to be like really young, back when I used to fit in this thing, I used to get inside it, and my mom has my parents' room has one like this. It's like where you store blankets, and I used to like to cuddle and get inside it back when I used to fit. Oh, now it has Cash toys, and this is Cash, by the way. She's a girl. Ow. Okay, just kidding. It's just I thought that I actually scratched my foot, but no, it's just cushioned like that. Okay. Like I want to try to see if I can still fit in this. Like, okay, no, now repeat my words. Okay, so last minute test. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Cash, you wanna join in? Okay, like I don't fit in this. I'm too big. Like I used to fit this thing really easily back when I was little. Like I used to love to get inside this. But now it's so tight. Okay. Gotta get my puffin. I'm slamming myself into this little, what do you call this, a storage thing? It's just my puff. It's always, okay. Oh, Cash. See, it doesn't really feel comfortable now that I've grown up. Okay, back to the actual analysis. Just want to test this out. For me, I have many strategies to restore my mental health, such as listening and dancing to music in my room, reading, and listening to positive affirmations. Being one of the people who support, admire, encourage, and love you for who you are
and of course, taking a warm bubble bath whenever I am having a bad day. So struggling with thoughts. Like what I like to do, I used to like to take hot baths to cool me down, even though it's basically soaking your own filth. I love listening to music and being surrounded by the people who support you for who you are, such as your comedy or your strength or your inspirations and your kindness, basically. That's all I have to say. And bye. There's also a scene before this that gave us the idea that Temple is a visual thinker who sees the world through pictures rather than words, connecting both the book, episode, and the actual person with the analogy that it is so much easier to show what autism is by descriptions and images rather than tell it through vague words. In the book, we are taking a deeper dive through Temple's childhood, such as finding out that with her autism, she was different from most babies, such as not looking at their parents in the eye, stifling themselves from cuddling, and not being able to talk by the age of 2. I always remember my parents telling me these type of stories that relate to me when I was younger, particularly on how I was not able to speak for a while. Oh, and this has got to be one of my favorite pages that I have rarely seen in autism media, since I remember saying this in my neurodiversity speech, that the high-functioning side of the spectrum is more favored in comparison with the severe conditions, especially the ones I have throughout my childhood that, trust me, my parents could never forget. I mean, sure, with Temple, she mentioned writing on the walls, breaking the vases, and chewing up puzzle pieces, but that's nothing compared to stealing a school bus, biting a kid's skin off in the kindergarten playground for making fun of my huge belly button, being sent home like almost every day in my young years, etc. I even have proof of how destructive I was back on my favorite scene that I done in my basement tour back on my old channel. Zazu and Adventure? What is this? Oh my god, who even tore it up? I mean, I was a feisty kid, so I think it'd probably be me. Like, Zazu? Who even knows this? Also, if you want to know the context of one of my cherry pictures I once showed on this channel, my mom told me that I was having a temper tantrum back in either preschool or kindergarten, so my mom and the teacher had to feed me a piece of cake to calm me down. Another thing I can highly relate with through Temple's story is not being able to feel like any other kids from the start, from a feature outside my autism, such as my untamable thick and nappy natural hair, that all in all makes it difficult for me and others to choose a fictional character who is similar to me. Apart from Zoe from Hair Love due to what I said about the hair thing. And Jeanette from the Chipmunk franchise, though I see her more as a comfort character and inspiration rather than someone who is like me. And with what happened after a year ago, well,
Let's just say there's a reason why the saying, "you should never meet your idols," exists.
similar to many other people with the condition, just like me, Temple was diagnosed with autism at the age of 3, as once again, she finds certain sounds and strobing lights too intense, and she even got a speech therapist to teach her how to pronounce the word ball, which will always remind me of back in my old speech and social skills group where I was in elementary school, with there mostly being 3 kids, with me being the only girl and 2 boys. With one of them, despite our sort of love-hate banner as kids, we are still on good terms as friendly acquaintances today. And the other boy, I don't know what happened to him, but he was more lower on the spectrum. I remember used to having a speech impairment that I discovered when I was in 5th grade in a term I like to call an anti-lips, where I used to pronounce the SP words and replace that prefix with an F.
For example, instead of saying the word spaceship, I would say the word spaceship. And instead of saying the word spring, I would say the word bring. And instead of saying the word spark, I would indeed say the word fuck.
Throughout her childhood, Temple Grandin experienced some of the things that I remember experiencing, such as entering my own little creative world to cover myself, having poor eye contact, and feeling like an outsider in social situations. Also, from the top picture of this page, do you remember the part where I said I bite a kid's arm skin off for making fun of my huge belly button back in kindergarten before I got surgery at the age of 8? Well, let's just say if I was Temple Grandin at that moment, you know that kid was to be an amputee, I'm just saying. After the scenes of her childhood, we got to see that within her autism, Temple is really talented at making all sorts of original kite designs as her specialty. There is just this wonderful analogy with the innovative kite Temple has made where the wings are flat, then bend up a little with a little flap on each end. Doesn't look like any other kites, but when she wore it with a tricycle, it miraculously soared, and a nice added detail when it came to this scene in Xavier Riddle, aside from calling it a bird kite, is how Temple's kite soared the highest out of the others, symbolizing that something that appears to be different and misunderstood could bring out the greatest gifts in a human being. Now, before we'll finish analyzing the kite and tricycle scene, I just want to say that first off, I know I'm not a kite expert, I just want to start it off there. But a kite symbolizes the feeling of being constructed by something with the need to free yourself. What we see next in the book for Temple Grandin is her not being constricted to be like everybody else, and instead free herself by focusing on the things she was interested in, such as animals and inventing. All of the people that inspired Temple to pursue her interest and talent in emphasizing with animals and visualizing new inventions reminds me of the people in my life encouragement with my writing and storytelling. I mean, why else do you think the channel will be called Pretty Stories?
Actually, if you want to know the quick origin story of the name Pretty Stories, then originally I got the historias part from a Greek translation to stories. Type it how it's spelled in Spanish cause I can't use all of those special letters, just one, and then add Brit to the front of the word and boom! Pretty Stories.
Temple's unique way of thinking has caused her to learn how horses interact with each other, picturing unique models of a rocket ship, and imagining a dream cushion machine that will help soothe both people and animals. She even considered the time when she visited her aunt's ranch to be the most important summer of her life, as when she got in the squeeze chute that is used to calm animals down to give them their medicine. With Temple emphasizing with that emotion, try out the squeeze shoe too, and discover that the relaxing squeeze has both a calming effect on animals and people, well by one of her teachers telling her to follow the pictures in her head to create her first squeeze machine in high school, which is just so remarkable, as the machine taught her to caress her cat gently, which also helped her find her purpose in building things that would help everyone be more gentle and caring. To connect with Temple's experience, I can briefly paraphrase from my About section on my resume that I am highly dedicated to the field of psychology due to my past experience of empathy, kindness, quotes, and friendships. I already made a year-old video on what inspired me to join the psychology field, along with writing an English paper and a certain rodent friendship that honestly done the job for me. When we see Temple working as a cattle chute operator, her studies of animal behavior has influenced her to not only be empathetic towards animals, but be an empath towards animals. An empath is a person who is highly understanding of the feelings and emotions of those around them. And the way Temple can just put her hands on the animals to know how they're feeling is such an extraordinary superpower, as the photos where it shows Temple's cuddling with animals always warms my heart. She also displays her unique problem-solving technique of crouching down in all fours to connect with what the cattle are feeling through both her animal behavior studies and her higher sensory intensity, as she uses her visual thinking to build and invent new equipment to help the cattle at the ranch, such as designing round chutes and pens for the cattle to follow the path more easily, replacing the steel ramp with a concrete ramp with grooves so they will walk down more calmly and safely in their paths, and build fences to help the cows not crash into one another, thus calming them down. I just find the line, Over and over, I proved that these were thinking creatures with real feelings, with Temple Grandin saying, "I love you too," is just one of the most genuine and heartwarming moments I have ever seen in my life, symbolizing how Temple has a stronger connection with animals in comparison to humans. Not only is this an astonishing trait to add to the neurodiversity community, but the understanding and empathy Temple has with animals in contrast to people reminds me of an episode of Hey Arnold in what most fans like to call the best episode of the entire series, Pigeon Man. And hey, since Hey Arnold luckily doesn't have a British fan-made web show podcast that will butcher up your true intentions for a greedy and hypocritical scam, the neurodiversity community all need to look at Vincent the Pigeon Man as not a person with autism, but an inspirational model for autistics, like me.
We can rebuild the cages and sweep up. Your birds will come back.
Of course they'll come back. They're birds. I trust them. I understand them. It's people I don't understand. Some people are meant to be with people. And others, like me, are just different.
Returning to the Xavier Riddle episode, once again, we see a sad and upset dog, and I don't know who does the voice or the sound of the dog, but similar to what I said about the voice acting of this entire episode, this sad and upset dog sounds like a realistic sad and upset dog. That's due to also have your dog. It made me feel so bad whenever I hear that type of sound coming out of any dog, ever. With Yadina thinking that the dog is hungry, Xavier thinking she wants an earwub, and Brad thinking she wants to play fetch, Temple Grandin, being the empath she is, by just one look of the dog and crouching down in all fours to connect with her behaviors, and in a few seconds later, she helped find the bowl the dog lost in the creek at the bottom of the tree to retrieve it for the dog and the owner.
Here you go. Her toy was stuck.
From all around the world, Temple Grandin became a well-known animal empath for companies everywhere, as she sent a message to people around the world to understand the gifts that being on the autism spectrum can bring, while also sharing a beautiful message about knowing that she's different and how she will never change anything about it, through creative and unconventional thinking. And being open to see things in the world at a whole new perspective that is uniquely yours. As to quote from the actual person, Temple Grandin, "The world needs all kinds of minds." Now that analyzing the book portion is complete, let's finish this episode where Yadina learns what being autistic means for Ben, thus learning the lesson of the episode.
So I should stop trying to make Ben do things my way and let him see the museum his way. Because people think and do things differently. And that's okay. Terrific, even. Get it? Because the dog said rough. Terrific. Oh dear.
After the kids thanked Temple Grandin for all her wisdom, help, and fun she done with the kite flying and quote-unquote couch hug, Booby sends the kids back to the present where, without even asking where in the Hades Brad and Xavier gone, Yadina goes inside the balloon exhibit to meet up with Ben and his mother once again in a not golden but platinum scene.
I told you Ben might spend most of his time here. Did I mention he loves balloons?
That's okay. He thinks and does things differently. My teacher says he's autistic.
Yes, he is. Sometimes he does things I wouldn't ever think of. He's his own unique person, and I think that's great.
Yeah, me too. Hi, Ben.
I just love how the moments that are usually dragged out in any other episodes representing autism, such as the stimming scenes and the "oh, why won't this person talk to me" scenes. Not saying that those type of moments being stretched out in Autism Acceptance episodes are bad, kind of the opposite really. I just find it so refreshing to have this episode show Ben's autism rather than tell, At first, we see her giving a look of confusion when trying to peek at what was enchanting Ben so much that didn't make him say a single word. It is simple, but very realistic to an actual kid and human being learning about autism. Instead of jumping straight to the acceptance part, which is all said entirely by both of their non-verbal expressions. Once Yadina looks closer at the balloons Ben was staring at, we have, once again, an amazingly subtle detail of Yadina, now being aware of Ben's fascination with balloons, decided to come up with a compromise by having them watch the balloons from up on the balcony, from which Ben agrees to with a huge smile, symbolizing that with autism or without autism, compromisation and mutual understanding are key to a wonderful friendship. Yadina also tells him that it's quieter up here to make Ben feel more comfortable for absorbing his surroundings, similar to what he did at the beginning. I also find it really unique that not only in this scene, but in the entire episode in itself, Ben only has 2 lines, which I'll only savor towards the very end. As someone who, I'm not sure I openly admit this to everybody at this point, but outside of British stories and home, I can come off as really shy and quiet around people, so most of the time I'll be responding similar to Ben, that whenever I speak in a quiet voice, I will also nod my head or smile at whatever matches the person's comment. So out of any canon autism representation, Ben is the one who I feel the most engaging to me personally.
It looks like a bird.
Really?
Every teeny tiny detail and interaction coming from Yadina and Ben, both verbally and physically, is just so relatable and realistic to the conversation I would have back in elementary school where I had friends. With one example being on how even when Ben is starting to open up, he still doesn't look at Yadina directly in the eye. I'm being serious when I say I could be making an entirely separate analysis on just this scene alone, because that is just how amazing this moment is for developing a genuine friendship with the encouragement on neurodiversity. Warning, what am I going to say next will come off as really controversial and a huge hot take when it comes to autism representation in kids shows, and this fact could also apply to any type of representation, such as the LGBTQ community, for example. Just know that before you said anything to counter this claim when it comes to representation in media, please understand that first off, I am an African American bi-curious woman with autism, and second, just because I point out this little critique in the representation media does not, and I repeat, does not mean they are doing a bad job at representing the community to the best of their ability. As long as we don't talk about the whole Autism Speak controversy, I respect each and every one of these shows for autism acceptance in their own uniquely but can't be stereotypical way. This is just a fault that I personally noticed when comparing these examples to I Am Temple Grandin. Some of you may think differently towards it, and that's great, but since I feel like I'm already wasting too much time to introduce this hot take, let's just rip off the band-aid and get it over with. The controversial hot take I have with autism acceptance media, as someone who is autistic, please remember that, is that the friendship building scenes always seem too hollow and forced, as if these episodes are more focused in taking the safer route of acceptance by not only forgetting the show don't tell rule, but they also give our neurotypical models these hollow one-note smiles that just don't look human enough as someone who loves analyzing more intense emotions. Now, I get it that the autism representations I decided to choose from this analysis are mostly coming from preschool shows, which tends to trigger my inner snarkiness given how cheesy and corny typical preschool shows can be as a teenager going to young adult. But I'm not gonna lie, it takes a lot of effort to get my tough exterior heart to be all mushed up with sweetness, especially without having me sound snarky or sarcastic about it. And I'm sorry to tell you this, but autism or no autism, compromisation and mutual understanding are one of the many everlasting components to a beautiful friendship. And personally, many of the autism representation friendship building scenes tend to come off as one-sided and unrealistic due to the following safer route of doing things only the neurodivergent likes. And while that's okay for the community, there was nothing wrong with compromisation and finding that perfect balance that will generally work for both of them as friends. I'm not sure if this is due to the lack of facial expression from even the neurotypical, ironically, or it mainly has to do with the voice acting, since you know how preschoolers are at talking slower and using the same generic tone to help little kids understand the message easier. The thing about I Am Temple Grandin that I personally admire out of any preschool show is on how Yadina shows many realistic facial expressions around Ben, such as confusion or pleasantly surprised. When Ben saw the balloons in the form of a bird, at first when looking at Yadina's perspective, she couldn't see the bird, which caused her to not only have a confused look on her face when trying to understand what Ben sees that she couldn't, but she also turned to Ben in a new emotion I like to call curiously confused. As the episode shows you this deep emotion Yadina is feeling about Ben's first line to her rather than tell. Surprisingly, how this is all coming from a preschool show. It wasn't until Yadina curiously squinted and leaned her head at Ben's direction to gain his superior vision at seeing all the balloons slowly shift into a bird, which, similar to kites, heck, even balloons, as Ben and Yadina pointed out features they see in the bird, with the final note of them solidifying their friendship is just the way Yadina delivers this last line to him. Like, I'm not sure if this is just her authentic voice acting or the fact that balloons and birds are simply universal for everybody in comparison to the Twain stereotype, influencing more open and mutual interaction between them in just this tiny little scene alone. But if you were to have to put these other autism acceptance clips side to side, you will clearly see a huge difference between how each of their friendships were able to form in their respective ASD representation episodes.
Actually, this train stops in Paris. It also stops in Calais, France. And it serves pastries.
Ooh la la! Please tell me everything.
That's a male lion. You could tell because he has a mane. Lions used to live all over the world, but now they're only found in Africa and India.
Huh, I never knew that.
Oh yeah! The big red balloon is the bird's belly.
And there's the head, and it has an orange beak.
I guess I've never stood here long enough to notice before.
I can never come up with just the right words on how underrated and all in all spectacular the book and the episode of I Am Temple Grandin is that I couldn't be more happier to choose it to analyze for Autism Acceptance Month. The thing that I find super beneficial about I Am Temple Grandin from an autistic perspective is how they model their story off from a real-life autistic voice rather than the company or tragedy. By having it that way, it makes it so much easier to stray away from the stereotypes and taking the safer route of acceptance by giving us more traits that are overlooked by the community, but I can never forget doing exactly just that when I was little. The fact that the real Temple Grandin is still alive today at the age of 75, and there was even an interview on how Temple feels about helping and inspiring on the book and episode, and people such as preschoolers on how to admire the gift autism will bring for it.
The thing that was really good is it explained a lot of things about autism to children, and I thought that was really good. Sensory issues, making friends with shared interests. That's something I've often talked about. That's how I made friends. And each different kind of mind brings different skills to the table, and these different thinkers can be complementary. I think things like this show will be really good on educating elementary school kids about, differences and inclusion. I think that's really good.
Also, I can't say this enough on how the ending scene is the purest definition of a platinum moment.
The honest and authentic facial expressions and vocal inflections that come from the Adina with our neurodivergent Ben having really solid development on his own by having his adapted speech and communication symbolizes Ben's openness through the beginning and the end of this episode has been caressed with just the perfect amount of care and thought, melting my rock-solid heart into a big red pile of rainbow juice, filled with open neurodiversity and kindness that will entirely hold a special place in my little gooey heart. Hello once again, Witty Storytellers. This is the Brit, and as I don't even know if you can tell this, but I already am sorry over my words, but this will be another unscripted outro, no surprise there. Except I will cheat sheet for the things that I want to mention connecting with this video, and also some of the projects that I want to work on that relates to this. So first off, I know that this is late and it's not April anymore, it's May, but just pretend that it's April, and besides you can celebrate Autism Acceptance in any month, so like still pretend that this is April since technically I want most of this in April and I'm not gonna revamp it, so just wait until next year and then it will be April, so just so you guys don't complain. Another thing that I want is just to recap, is the hummus story from 2nd grade. You know, my old best friend dipped my pink with squishy inside her hummus story snack time, and so I did not like the smell of hummus back then. But you know, like today, I don't really mind the smell of hummus anymore. I mean, like for real, like even today, I'm currently working at Panera Bread, so whenever I'm making the Mediterranean bowls, I have to work with hummus, and so I don't really mind the smell or even the taste. I tried tasting a bit of hummus a little, and I didn't really mind both the taste and the smell. Like, I'm alright with hummus today, so that sensory issue is long lost in the past. And before we end it off here, I just want to give a brief shout out to my neurodiversity novel idea called Glass Bottom Boat. The whole premise of the story, inspired by the first degree Gemini symbol, which symbolizes the wonders of the sea and the depth of realization that shall not be overlooked, is about a little boy named Wise who has autism and is obsessed with marine life, forming a beautiful friendship with a kind but naive local named Empathy on a mini cruise ship called the Glass Bottom Boat in the first-person perspective of Wise. My desire is to direct this story towards more of a younger audience while having Wise still exhibit some of my inner snarkiness, unruly behavior, and especially creativity. I'm still thinking of adding new ideas for Glass Bottom Boat, such as adding like the new kid characters, like the other kid characters other than Wise and Empathy, and the entire world building of the mini cruise ship, or technically the boat since it's called Glass Bottom Boat. And I find it so ironic because despite all of the many cruises I took with my family, I couldn't come up with, I have a kind of a hard time coming up with things on the cruise ship just to make it unique. And I think this is one of the reasons why I was so fond with choosing to analyze I Am Temple Grandin, because even before I watched this episode, I the ending scenes is similar to the whole purpose of Glass by the Boat, where Wise and Empathy are staring in the depths of the ocean, and which is another ironic thing since I am scared of fish, but yeah, and that was the whole purpose of seeing things from a totally new, unique perspective. Like that moment is even on the cover page, so you know that scene's gonna be necessary in the entire story. And I'm trying not to give too much away, but the main destination of Glass Bottom Boat is in Thailand. I am so interested in Thailand right now. It's both connecting to Escape the Story of Lighthouse Village and Glass Bottom Boat, because not only does that focus on my greatest fear of fish, hopefully I can overcome that soon, but they both focus on Thailand, with one of the main characters of Escape being Algie, who is a Thai descent. And with Glass Bottom Boat, their main destination is in Thailand, where they will meet a native tribe. I'm thinking, again, I'm still coming up with ideas, and it'll be really fun since I heard that
in Southeastern Asia, they have mangrove trees, which you guys need to check out my Minecraft analysis on how I find mangrove trees to be really intriguing, and also they get white canoes to this village. Like, there's just so much to love about Thailand, and also the elephants. I heard there's this one elephant, like you can look it up online, called Patilda, who is like an autism therapy elephant, a neurodivergent therapist elephant. Like, please look it up since I have a hard time remembering this off script. And I think something like that will be really cool to add to the story because I'm like so interested in Thailand's culture right now, and yeah, I wish to probably study in the future. I mean, who knows? I mean, so far I don't know how to, but like that's how interested I am in Thailand customs. So if you have any ideas, let me know. So anyways, even though this is late, I really hope you enjoyed this, and another thing I want to mention is that I sort of got sick, like kind of halfway or more than halfway through the video. So if my recording voice sounded kind of off back then and like over half of the video, then that's why. Cause like I dicked myself and I accidentally got sick and over half of the recordings. But anyways, it's almost reaching an hour through the video. I really hope you enjoyed this. Please support neurodiversity. Take care, and I hope to see you next time. Goodbye.